Alrighty, well, good morning. Welcome everybody to the second annual R.F. Baker Plant Breeding Symposium. My name is Matt Dzievit and this is Chantal McCabe. We're both PhD students here at Iowa State. I'd like to first thank all of you guys for being here in audience with us, and as well as those who are listening on the webinar. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, and a big thanks to all of our speakers who traveled a great distance and a lot of struggles to get here, especially Dr. Miller. We appreciate you guys being here today with us at this symposium.
We are proud to be part of the DuPont Pioneer Plant Science Symposia series and the network of plant science graduate students who are organizing similar events around the world. Organizing this symposia has given us the opportunity to network with other graduate students from other universities. In our audience today is the organizing committee from the University of Minnesota Plant Breeding Symposium, and Texas A&M and the University of Wisconsin-Madison are hosting viewing parties today, participating in our event from the webinar.
So like I mentioned before, this symposium is being broadcast on our webinar, and with that we have people from all throughout the country and the world. So we have people from South Dakota, North Carolina, Texas, Georgia, Arizona, Mississippi, Ohio, Brazil, and many, many more that are participating through the webinar. And like I already said that, I'm sorry. So yes, and so those of you that are joining us today through the webinar, so on the website there was a way for you to ask questions, so please use that in order to ask questions throughout the webinar, and we will be viewing those and asking the questions as they come up.
The plant breeding and genetics graduate students have worked really hard this year to organize today's symposium. We're excited to present today's theme, Germplasm History, the Foundations of Plant Breeding. There is no aspect of plant breeding that would exist without the proper use and understanding of the genetic variation available for selection. Today we have an exciting lineup of speakers, as well as a poster presentation and competition with over 30 posters.
And as always, our symposium would not be possible without our sponsors, so we'd really like to thank our sponsors for that. So the Raymond F. Baker Center for Plant Breeding, the Department of Agronomy, and DuPont Pioneer. And again, we'd like to mention, if anyone in the room would like to ask questions throughout this symposium, please use the two microphones that are kind of located throughout the room. That way the people on the webinar are able to hear the questions that are being asked. So if people are starting to forget, we will just remind you throughout, but please try to use the microphones when asking questions. We do appreciate that.
And with that, I would like to introduce Dr. Kendall Lamkey. He is the Department Chair of Agronomy here at Iowa State University.
Is that on? Yeah, it is. Well, thanks, Chantal and Matt. I really appreciate it. So she introduced me as the Department Chair of Agronomy, which I am. But at one time I was a plant breeder, and so it's sort of interesting that I get to do this. But I still consider myself a plant breeder. But anyway, on behalf of the faculty, students, and staff in the Department of Agronomy, I'd like to welcome everybody to Iowa State University. And to the second annual Raymond F. Baker Symposium on Plant Breeding. It's really an honor to be hosting this symposium. That's sponsored by our friends at Pioneer, and I want to thank Tabare Abadie for all the work he's done too, and all the collaborations he's had with us and our other friends down at Pioneer. And so then I really do want to thank the graduate students. Both Chantal and Matt have put a lot of work in this, and in your handout, I think on the back of the program, there's a list of all the students who've been involved. So we're all pretty proud of the graduate students and the amount of work they've put into this. I mean, Jin Ming and I were talking about this yesterday, and they've done this pretty much all on their own, I think, and so you should give them all the credit. And if you have any problems, talk to Jin Ming. If you think there's something wrong, it's Jin Ming's fault. I'm just kidding, Jin Ming. Anyway, no, we're both really proud of the students for all the work they put into this. We've done a really good job, and the turnout here has been really tremendous. And of course, that support from Pioneer too. And I don't know if that's all the plant breeding students or not. I was thinking this morning that plant breeding here at Iowa State's got a really long history. I know at least in the corn breeding program, it goes back to 1922. And so it's hard to believe, but we'll soon be coming up on 100 years of plant breeding here, which is sort of an interesting landmark, and to think about it. And that got me thinking. About germplasm. and the theme today. That word has always intrigued me since I've been in graduate school because it's an odd word. Yesterday afternoon before the dinner last night, I started looking up germplasm on the web and in books to see where it came from. Does anybody know where that word came from by chance? I never did find out. But here's what I did find. So I looked through plant breeding books, old plant breeding books. I don't have a huge collection, but I have a few. And I couldn't find it in very many of them. And the only plant breeding book that I found the word in was in Allard's book. And he had a definition of it in the back of the book, and his definition was the sum total of hereditary materials in a species, which I thought was interesting. Which I think that's sort of how we use it. Then I think we sort of use it in different contexts and subdivide it. I had a Hayes and Emmer 1942 plant breeding book that had no definition. The word I don't think was even used in the book, which I think was interesting. So then I got on the web, which is the source of all knowledge. I got on the crop science webpage, and I searched in crop science and agronomy journals. So you can search all the way back in history, do full text search at both of those journals now. And germplasm never appears in either one of those journals until 1966, the word, which I thought was interesting. Unless I made a mistake, but I searched it again. Searching is a dangerous thing, and so you hate to do this, but the first use of it was in Crop Science in 1966, I think in a germplasm release by Cal Closet and a man named Hoskinson, a germplasm source for population of rye. And then the word slowly appeared more frequently over time in Crop Science and, of course, a little bit in Agronomy Journal, too. So I think that's been sort of interesting to me. When I think of germplasm, I think of genetic diversity and all the questions that are associated with it. And I think it's really interesting that I think during my entire career we've been talking about germplasm, and here we are again in 2015, and we're talking about germplasm, how to measure it, what it means, how does it impact selection response, how important is the structure of genetic diversity in populations, right? And how does that influence what plant breeders do? And so hopefully we'll hear about some of those questions today from some of the speakers. So I'll shut up and get Tabare up here. But anyway, I want to again welcome you all to Iowa State, and I hope you have a very productive conference. I'm planning on trying to be here for most of it. I have a couple of meetings I got to go, but maybe we'll see some of you at lunch. So once again, congratulations to the graduate students for putting together such a nice conference. And so take care. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you, Dr. Lamkey, for that. All right, it's my pleasure now to introduce Tabare Abadie. He is the lead of research effectiveness at DuPont Pioneer, and he's kind of the coordinator for Pioneer on all of the symposiums that are going around the world, and so I'm sure he'll talk about that, but let's give a warm welcome for Tabare. Thank you.
Can you? There you are. Thank you, guys. And thank you, everybody, and thank you very especially to the organizers and for putting together this second event here in Iowa State. It is very important for us, to be part of this community actively in this way. And also thank you for everybody for joining us today here in Ames. I am going to talk a little bit more about the network of events that we have around the world, and just a little bit of, getting back on which are the objectives of this network. And, one thing that, that is important about this network is that it is fully student-run. I mean, all the events that we run around the world are run fully by students, and, all the organization, all the effort of putting together an event like this is done by students. The organizers here have done a great job, and as they mentioned, this is the same situation for all the other events that we are sponsoring. We look at this as an educational experience. We think, and we actually have seen along the years that there is a growth process that accompanies the organization of events like this. To actually have an event like this and the network in general happen, there are a lot of things that happen behind the scenes, and a lot of people, that have longer careers know that, but we not always have the chance to actually experience that while we are in school. So we think that this is a great opportunity for people to learn some of those of things and gain some of those skills, and in a way understand what it takes to organize and coordinate and network and compromise, right? And in a lot of things, and hopefully in life in general, in life too. And we also tried to get sure that the event presents and discuss relevant science, and that means is relevant for the group that is organizing the event in each of the universities. And so each university has their own way of picking the topics, and they do it completely on their own, and we trust that that is the best way for them to identify which are the things that they really want to listen and who are the people that they want to meet and invite. And we try to work together on building global connections, right? And connect groups across universities and across continents, to actually, bring up the idea that plant breeding and science in general is global, right? I mean, and we have kind of a global mandate of taking this message around the world. And the other thing that I think is very important is that these events are also used to inform the broader university community about, plant sciences, because, this is an opportunity for people, for administrators and for people from other departments and undergraduates to come and see what it is, about science, plant science. And since it's a free event, it's easy for everybody to join and, at least come for a free lunch and listen to some people talk about these topics and maybe elicit the interest on going into the plant sciences in the future. A little bit about the history, and I am going to go fast on this. We started in 2008 in Minnesota, and then we kept evolving around the world and, across North America. And, why not go international, right? And last year, ISU, it was incorporated in this system, but we are still growing, and we are adding more events around the world. And the idea is to keep the network growing in the future, too. So the idea is that by the end of this year, we could have reached 50 events in 5 continents, and we estimate that we have reached around 8,000 participants, both in present and in via webinar. I mean, it's very hard to know. The presence ones are easy to estimate, but the webinars, really vary along the day. So, this is kind of an estimate. It might be more, it might be less, but I think it's a considerable effort that has been put together and a considerable coordination, especially by the students, to actually learn from each other from a series like this. And these are all the events that are going to be supported this year. And as you probably see, we started in Texas a couple of weeks ago. And as you might have seen, on the slides shown by the students before, there are events coming in, in a different, in a list of universities, both in North America and in Europe, in Latin America, and in Asia too, and Africa too. We are working in Pretoria since last year too. So an agreement. We all agreed that in each event we are going to announce the next one. So the next one is the Cornell event in a couple of weeks from now, and this is also going to be webinared. And I'm not saying that people. I mean, if you want to go to Cornell, you're more than welcome. But please do register on the webinar if you are interested in attending to this event in Cornell. And the other thing is I want to point out is how every year there are new initiatives that are completely student initiatives. I mean, they come emerging properties of this network. And last year, the students from Minnesota, who are like, the senior group, because they started the series, they published this article in CSA News about why they were doing this, right? I mean, and I think I strongly encourage you guys to actually go and look at this article and see, and reflect, I mean, what the students put together and why they are doing this. I think that the key point here is empowering, right? I mean, and it actually means a lot to me to see that the students are seeing this as an opportunity for taking a little bit of control on their own educational agenda. And so I also want to say that as one new initiative this year, especially Iowa State and Minnesota and probably Madison too, are putting together travel grants so that students from both universities can attend symposia on each other university. And we do have a group, or at least 10 or maybe 11 students from Minnesota here that brought their posters, and we are very happy to have this this new development emerging and maybe becoming a pattern. Maybe in the future we can do it even in longer distances. And so with that, I want to thank everybody for being here, and I mean, I hope that you enjoy the day, and what else? I mean, live long and prosper, okay?